Hi there! In this video, we will get acquainted with the general provisions and basic terms of traffic rules. According to the law of Ukraine on road traffic, traffic rules establish the unified order of road traffic on the whole territory of Ukraine. Other normative acts concerning the peculiarities of road traffic. Transportation of special cargo. Operation of certain types of vehicles. Traffic in closed territories, etc., shall base it on the requirements of these rules. Ukraine established the right-hand traffic of vehicles. If the roadway is not divided by markings, you should mentally draw the middle and keep the right side. Road users are obliged to know and strictly comply with these requirements of these rules, as well as to be mutually courteous. And here we see the necessity of the rules and the requirements of all traffic participants. Each road user had the right to expect that other participants comply with these rules. This norm allowed the driver of the red car, which is moving directly on the main road and accordingly had the advantage in traffic, to count on compliance with the requirements of the rules by other drivers who have to give the roadway. Actions or omissions of road users and other persons should not create a danger or obstacle to traffic, threaten the life or health of citizens, or cause material damage. We see the actions of the driver of the red car, which are prone to severe problems for him and other drivers, which is unacceptable. Failure to assist an injured person is an example of inaction. In this case, the driver witnessed a severe accident and instead of stopping and providing first aid to the injured, where only minutes, sometimes even seconds, can decide everything, he showed complete indifference and just drove around the place of the accident and continued driving. It is allowed to use the roads not by their designation, considering the requirements of Article 3638 of the Law of Ukraine on Highways. These articles of the law determine the order of using the roads of public holidays and the other mass events, sports competitions, constructions of facilities, road service facilities, gas stations, constructions of engineering networks, and the placement of advertising media on the roads. For example, in this case, we can see the violation of the rules of use the road by placing an extraneous structure on it. The use of roads, not for their intended purpose, is coordinated with the local authorities and the relevant unit of the national police. The use of public roads of state importance is also coordinated with the central executive body that implement the state policy in the sphere of road economy and management of public roads of state importance. Drivers are required to be particularly attentive to such categories of road users as bicyclists, persons moving in wheelchairs, pedestrians. All road users must be particularly attentive to the children, the elderly, persons with obvious signs of disability. These categories of road users, due to their age or poor health, may not be sufficiently aware of the requirements of traffic rules and create a danger to others. Therefore, drivers must slow down, and pedestrians and passengers must assist if necessary. Restriction in road traffic, other than those stipulated by these rules, can be introduced in the order established by law. This norm notes that the restriction of road traffic is carried out only on legal grounds, for example, elimination of the consequences of a natural disaster, carrying out specific works on roads or railway crossings, or the passage of motorcades of persons entitled to state protection. Persons violating these rules shall be liable by the law. Let us consider the basic terms given in the rules. They are an explanatory dictionary of traffic rules, and for an accurate understanding of the requirements of the rules in future, it is necessary to break them down in detail. In our opinion, we can divide all the terms specified in traffic rules or regulations into 4 large groups. The first group, roads, which we drive or walk on. The second group, vehicles, what we use to drive. The third group is the human factor, those who drive, walk, and perform other functions. And the fourth group is road safety. Therefore, the first group of terms is roads. The concept of roads. This part of territory, including the settlement, is designed for the movement of vehicles and pedestrians, with all the structures located on it. Bridges, overpasses, overhead and underground crosswalks, and road traffic management facilities and limited in width by the outer edge of sidewalks or the edge of the right-of-way. In other words, the concept of road is broad, covering many different elements. The first element is the dividing line, the highlighted element of the road with the road markings and solid lines separating adjacent roadways. But the dividing line is designed to be a separating element. The dividing line does not provide for driving, stopping or parking vehicles. Pedestrians can use the dividing strip if there is a sidewalk on it. Non-rail vehicles move on the roadway and pedestrians move on sidewalks, which are roadway elements. A motor road may have one or more carriageways, the limits of which are dividing strips. Each roadway is divided into traffic lanes, which are longitudinal lanes along the carriageway with a width of at least 2.75 meters, marked or not marked with road markings, and designed for the movement of non-rail vehicles in one row. The submitted roadway has a dividing strip and contains 2 roadway lanes, each with 2 lanes for traffic in one direction. The term edge of the roadway for non-rail vehicles means a visible conditional or marked line on the roadway at the place of its adjacency to the curb, sidewalk, lawn, dividing strip, streetcar lane, bicycle or pedestrian path. In some cases, about which we will speak further, the driver should move or stop closer to the right or left edge of the carriageway. This road without a dividing strip contains 1 carriageway with 4 lanes in both directions or 2 lanes in each direction. And the double solid line should not be confused with the dividing lane. Emphasize that this is the road without a dividing lane. Well, this road has 2 lanes for traffic in both directions or 1 lane in each direction. A roadway may also contain such an element as a curb. The curb is an element of a roadway marked out structurally or by a solid line of road markings adjacent directly to the outer edge of the carriageway, located at the same level and not intended for a vehicular traffic, but only for stopping and parking. At the same time, there are categories of road users who have the right to move along the curb. These are pedestrians in the absence of sidewalks and walkways, cyclists if there are not bike lanes or if it is impossible to move on them, drivers of mopeds and animal-drawn carts or sledges. The term highway also includes specially constructed temporary roads. But arbitrarily rolled rails are not a road. Also, road can be of state and local significance. State highways are public highways, which include international, national, regional, and territorial highways marked with appropriate road signs. And on this slide is a highway of local significance. A highway is a specially constructed roadway for the movement of vehicles marked with appropriate road sign, having separate carriageways for each direction of traffic, separated from each other by a dividing strip, bordered and fenced with a grid. Such a roadway does not serve the purpose of entering or exiting the surrounding area. It does not cross at the same level as other roads, railway and streetcar tracks, pedestrian and bicycle paths, and animal passageways. These factors ensure the movement of vehicles no such a road at the maximum permissible speeds. A main road is primarily a road with a comparative topsoil cover. A road surface can have the following substrates: cement concrete, asphalt concrete, tar, gravel and sand, and stones. The functions listed above distinguish a road from a surface road. The presence on a dirt road of section of pavement immediately before an intersection does not equate it with the intersecting road. It remains a secondary road. In a built-up area, warning signs may be placed 50 to 100 meters before the junction outside the built-up area, and 150 to 300 meters before the intersection. A priority sign is installed just before the crossing. A pedestrian path is a paved path of pedestrian traffic, made within or off the road and marked with appropriate road sign. A pedestrian crossing is a carriageway, traffic island or separate lane, a 6T engineering structure designed for a pedestrian movement across a road. Unregulated pedestrian crossings are marked with appropriate road signs and road markings. In the absence of road markings, the boundaries of a pedestrian crossing are determined by distance between road signs, and at an intersection, in the absence of road signs and markings, by the width of pavements of shoulders. Regulated pedestrian crossings are marked with pedestrian traffic lights and road markings. In the absence of road markings, the boundaries of a pedestrian crossing are determined by distance between pedestrian traffic lights, and at an intersection where there are no pedestrian traffic lights, by the width of pavements or shoulders. Bicycle track is a paved path outside the carriageway of a street and/or road, located separately or adjacent to a pavement or pedestrian path, designed for cycling and marked with a road sign, bicycle track, and appropriate horizontal markings. If there is no pavement or walkway, pedestrians may use it without obstructing cyclists. Bicycle lane is a lane designed for cycling within the carriageway of a street and/or road, marked with a road sign bicycle lane and corresponding horizontal road markings. Bicycle crossing is the place where cyclists cross the carriageway within an intersection marked with appropriate road markings. But turning right or left at any intersection, the driver must give the roadway he is turning into to a cyclist traveling directly in the opposite direction and to pedestrians crossing the carriageway he is turning on. Also, a cycle crossing can be outside an intersection. In this situation, on the other hand, give way. A tramway is a road element intended for the movement of rail vehicles, limited in width by specially marked tramway line or road markings. Non-rail transport is allowed to use the tramway in some cases. A bridge is a structure intended to carry traffic over a river, ravine, or other obstructions, the borders of which are the beginning and the end of the span. On the screen is the bridge over the reservoir. The overpass is visually similar to a bridge. Nevertheless, when another road of railway is located under the bridge-type structure and many level interchanges are present, we speak not about the bridge, but rather about an overpass. An elevated overpass is an engineering construction for the movement of vehicles and/or pedestrians, elevating one road above the other at the point of their intersection and creating a roadway at a certain height without exits to another way. Thus, an elevated overpass is the same as an overpass, except without multi-level solutions. It is impossible to exit onto the road located under an overpass. An intersection is a junction where roads intersect, about or branch at the same level. Intersections can be four-way intersections, T-intersections, Y-intersection, roundabouts. It is essential to know that an intersection has boundaries. It is essential to know what are the boundaries of section. To do this, find the start of the rounded edges of each roadway, put points and draw imaginary lines between them. This inner place will be the boundary of the intersection. You shall distinguish between boundaries of an intersection and boundaries of intersecting roadways. To do this, mentally draw lines as an extension of each roadway and obtain the boundaries of the intersecting roads. If an intersecting road has two roadways, the intersection will already have two intersecting roadways. Therefore, the red car first crosses the first junction and then the second. An adjoining area is a territory adjacent to the edge of the roadway and not intended for traffic but only for entry or exit to yards, parking areas, construction sites, petrol stations, etc. It is essential to note that the place where entrances and exits from adjacent area are adjacent to the road does not consider to be intersection. A lawn is an area of uniform turf artificially created by sowing and growing sod-forming grasses, mostly perennial grasses, or turf. A safety island is a technical means of regulating traffic at pedestrian crossings, structurally separated from the carriageway and designed as a protective element to stop pedestrians from crossing the roadway. The traffic island includes the part of the median line through which the pedestrian crossing passes. If there is a safety island, it should accommodate pedestrians who have not crossed the carriageway at a traffic light, permitting a traffic signal. Improved pavement is a cement concrete, asphalt concrete, reinforced concrete, paving or mosaic. Any artificial hard surface that is improved over an unpaved road. The settlement is a built-up area, the entries to and exits from which are indicated by appropriate road signs. Later on, when studying directional signs, we will learn how the requirements of white and blue signs differ. Residential area means yards, areas, and parts of settlements marked with the appropriate road sign. There are special conditions for vehicle traffic in residential areas. A railway crossing is a road crossing with a railway tracks on the same level. Remember that railroad crossing the high-risk areas and the rules of passing them apply to all categories of drivers, including operational vehicles with flashing beacons. A petrol police road station is an area near the carriageway marked by road sign 6.10 with a building or other structure located therein intended for the presence of petrol police officer while they are on duty. The second group of terms is vehicles. A vehicle is a device intended for people, goods and special equipment or machinery mounted on its transportation. Vehicles can be either mechanical or non-mechanical. A motor vehicle is a vehicle that is propelled by an engine. The term covers tractors, self-propelled machines and mechanism, trolleybuses, and electrically powered transport vehicles over 3 kilowatts. Accordingly, vehicles without an engine or with an electric motor of less than 3 kilowatt are non-mechanical. A moped is a two-wheeled vehicle with an engine displacement of up to 50 cube or an electric motor of up to 4 kilowatts. Motorbike is a two-wheeled motor vehicle with or without a side trailer and an engine with a displacement of 50 cube or more. Motorbike shall mean scooters, sidecars, tricycles, and other motor vehicles with a maximum permissible mass not exceeding 400 kilograms. A wheelchair is a specially designed wheeled vehicle intended for use by disabled persons or persons belonging to other groups of people with reduced mobility on the road. A wheelchair shall have at least 2 wheels and shall be propelled or propelled by the muscular power person. A bicycle is a vehicle other than a wheelchair, propelled by the muscular power of a person sitting in it. A passenger car is a vehicle with not more than 9 seats, including the driver's seat, which by its design and equipment is intended for the carriage of passengers and their luggage with the provision of the necessary key. A vehicle with more than 9 seats, including the driver's seat, is called a bus. Of course, the construction and equipment of the vehicle must provide for the carriage of passengers and their luggage with the necessary comfort, and single-decker buses with no more than 17 seats, including the driver's seat, are called mini. A truck is a vehicle that by design and equipment is intended for goods transportation. A trailer is a vehicle intended to be driven only in connection with another vehicle by means of a device called a drawbar. The weight of the load carried by trailer is borne solely by its frame and wheels. The linkage of the trailer to the tractor is used only for the transmission of traction force. This type of vehicle also includes semi-trailers, where the weight of the load is shared between the trailer's wheels and the tractor's wheels. And roll-on trailers. These are trailers or semi-trailers used to transport long loads, mainly timber. A road train rolling stock is a motor vehicle coupled to one or more trailers by a coupling device. Passenger car train. A goods road train. All the listed vehicles are considered non-rail vehicles. On the other hand, trams and platforms with special equipment running on tramways are called rail vehicles. In some cases, rail vehicles have advantages over non-rail vehicles. Public transport vehicles are public transport vehicles such as buses, minibuses, trolleybuses, trams and taxis, which move along prescribed roads and have designated places on the road for picking up, dropping off passengers. Agricultural machinery includes tractors, self-propelled chassis, self-propelled agricultural, road construction, reclamation and other machinery. Daytime running lights are external lights of white color provided by the construction of the vehicle at the front of the mounted vehicle and designed to improve the vehicle's visibility during its movement in daylight hours. A convoy of vehicles is an organized group of 3 or more vehicles traveling together in the same direction directly behind each other with their dipped headlights constantly on. The third group of terms is a human factors. A road user is a person directly involved in the traffic on the road as a pedestrian, driver, passenger, animal driver, cyclist, or a person moving in a A driver is a person who drives a vehicle and has a driving license of an appropriate category. A tractor driving license. A temporary permit to use a motor vehicle. A temporary driving permit. Thus, a person driving a car, motorbike, moped, tractor, trolleybus, tram, any vehicle that requires the appropriate permissions to handle is considered a person who uses the vehicle and is in the motor vehicle but is not involved in driving. It is a passenger. A person who learns to drive the vehicle while being directly in the motor vehicle is also a driver. That is, in the conditions of training ride, the student who is not the driver is actually driving the training vehicle, and legally the driver is the driver training specialist who bears all responsibility. A cyclist is the person who rides a bicycle. A pedestrian is the person who participates in road traffic outside vehicles and does not do any work on the road. Persons who move in wheelchairs without an electric motor, drive a bicycle, moped, or motorbike, or carry a sledge, cart, pram, or wheelchair are also considered pedestrians. Please note that people doing any work on the road are not pedestrians. They have the right to be on the roadway in areas where pedestrians are prohibited, but in this case they must take appropriate safety measures. Guard bollards. Pedestrian convoy is an organized people group moving along the roadway in the same direction. Transport of organized groups of children is simultaneous transport of 10 or more children, with a supervisor responsible for accompanying them during the journey. For a group of 30 or more children, an additional medical officer is appointed. A child restraint system is equipment capable of restraining a child in a seated or reclined position, which reduces the risk of injury to the child in the event of a collision or sudden braking of the vehicle by restricting the movement of the child's body. A person moving in a wheelchair is a disabled person or a person belonging to other people with low mobility who can move independently on the road in a wheelchair. A traffic controller is a police officer who regulates road traffic by wearing an uniform with increased visibility and reflective elements and using a baton or whistle. The employees of the Military Inspection of Road Safety, Road Maintenance Service, duty at ferry crossing and railway crossing are equivalent to a traffic controller with a relevant certificate and an armband, a baton, a disc with a red signal or a retroflector, a red light or a flag in a uniform. The fourth group of terms is road safety. A road traffic accident is an event caused by a moving vehicle that has resulted in the death or injury of a person or damage to property. The legal fact of occurrence of a road traffic accident shall be its registration by a subdivision of the National Police. Leaving the scene of a road traffic accident is actions of a road traffic participant aimed at concealing the fact of the accident or the circumstance of its occurrence, which made it necessary for the police to take measures to identify, search for the participant and/or search for the vehicle. Road conditions are factors characterizing three aspects. The first is visibility in the direction of travel. Visibility is worse in the dark than in daily hours. Visibility in winter is generally worse than in summer. Road conditions are different. Second are road conditions characterized by the state of the roadway surface: dry road, rain, ice, potholes, undulations, etc. Third are 13 factors characterizing the road is widths, descents, gradients, bends, roundabouts, certain roads features such as pavements or shoulders, and traffic management facilities. The road environment includes road conditions plus, additionally, the following. First is the presence of obstacles on a particular road section. Yesterday, traffic was free on this road section. Today, roadworks have started and traffic is impeded. Second is the volume of traffic. So at 5 a.m. there are not many cars on this section of the road. At 8 a.m. there's a lot of traffic. The road situation has changed. And third is the level of traffic organization. Presence of road markings, road signs, road equipment, traffic lights and their condition. For example, if traffic lights were working on a given section of the road yesterday, they are not working today. Traffic can be complicated. The driver must consider these factors when choosing vehicle speed, lane and driving techniques. Roadworks works related to construction, reconstruction, repair, maintenance of a road, street, artificial facilities, road drainage facilities, engineering devices, installation, repair, replacement of technical means of road traffic management. The concept of safety distance. First, let us define what distance is in general. Distance is the distance to the vehicle ahead in the same lane. A safety distance is a distance to the vehicle ahead in the same lane that, in case of sudden braking or stopping, allows the driver of the motor vehicle behind to avoid a collision without making a maneuver. When choosing a safety distance, the driver shall consider the road and traffic conditions, to speed of the vehicle, its technical state and the load condition. The concept of safety distance. Again, let's define what a safety interval is. Interval is the distance between the sides of vehicles or between vehicles and other objects. And a safety interval is the distance between moving lateral parts of vehicles or between them and other objects at which road safety is guaranteed. This term is the essence of the non-contact movement of vehicles when passing oncoming traffic, overtaking or overtaking, avoiding, etc. A safe speed is a speed at which the driver can safely operate the vehicle and control its movement in specific road conditions. That is, a driver must consider the road conditions and the road environment when choosing a safe speed. For example, a car driven by an experienced driver is moving on the road outside and built-up area, with separate carriageways for each direction of travel in summer during daylight hour in sunny weather. In this situation, the maximum speed allowed by the road rules on this section of the road. If the same driver drives the same car but in winter at night, then the safe speed will be significantly lowered, which will allow the driver, if necessary, to stop in front of an obstacle, prefer to move around the impediment, etc. One often hears about accidents caused by the driver failing to control the vehicle. In most cases, drivers get into such a situation previously because they are not driving. Towing is the movement of one vehicle by another one, which does not belong to the operation of road trains, vehicle combinations by one of three methods. On a flexible coupling. On a rigid coupling. The method of partial loading on a platform or a specific support device. We will discuss towing in more detail. Maneuvering is starting, overtaking or converting, turning around, driving of the carriageway and driving in reverse. We can generalize it with the following phrase: a driver maneuvers if he turns the steering wheel for any purpose or if he reverses. Extreme position of the carriageway is the position of the vehicle at a distance from the edge of the carriageway, the middle of the carriageway or the dividing lane, that prevents an oncoming motor vehicle, including a two-wheeler, from moving even closer to the edge of the carriageway, the middle of the carriageway or the dividing lane. Before turning or making a U-turn, the driver needs to engage not just the outermost lane on the carriageway, but the outermost position where not even a two-wheeled vehicle can fit between his motor vehicle and the edge of the way. Visibility in traffic direction is the maximum distance at which the boundaries of road elements and the position of road users can be recognized from the driver's seat, enabling the driver to orient himself while driving, particularly for choosing the safe speed and a safe maneuver. Low visibility is the visibility of the road in the direction of travel of less than 300 meters at dusk, in fog, rain, snowfall, etc. The day-dark time is part of the day from sunset to sunrise. It is worth underlining that the traffic rules oblige the driver in the dark time of the day and in conditions of low visibility to switch on corresponding external lights devices. Dazzle is a driver's physiological state caused by light affecting his vision when a driver is objectively unable to detect obstacle or recognize boundaries of road elements at a minimum distance. When dazzled, the driver must turn the hazard warning lights and stop without changing lanes. Continue driving after all negative factors of building have passed. Visibility is the objective ability to see the road ahead from the driver's seat. Visibility depends on many factors. These include the type of vehicle. Visibility from the truck driver's seat is usually better than that of a passenger car driver. Visibility in the direction of travel, road conditions, etc. Limited visibility is visibility of the road in the direction of travel, limited by road geometry, roadside engineering structures, plantings and other objects, and by vehicles. Priority – the right to have priority over other road users. In this case, we drive on the main road, therefore we have the right of way. The rules stipulate a specific order of movement of vehicles if their trajectories intersect or merge. Therefore, someone has the advantage and someone has to give way. Therefore, the term giving way has also been introduced. Consequently, to give way is a requirement for a road user not to continue or recover traffic, not to perform any maneuver except the request to vacate the lane they are occupying, if this may cause other road users to have the advantage to change their direction or speed. See end of the main road and give way signs, give way to yellow and green vehicles having the advantage. Overtaking is preceding one or more vehicles by crossing into the oncoming traffic lane. If a vehicle is driving at a higher speed than the speed of a motor vehicle in the adjacent lane, it is not overtaking, but outrunning. Outrunning can be either with a maneuver like as a red car does, or without maneuvering, as a green car is ahead of the truck and the red car. Stopping is stopping the movement of a vehicle for up to 5 minutes for any reason. A stop is defined as a stoppage of traffic for a longer time if it is necessary. First, for embarking, disembarking passengers. A bus at a terminus was embarking and disembarking passenger for 10 minutes. This was a stop. Secondly, the stoppage of the journey for loading, unloading of goods. A lorry was loading or unloading for 1 hour. This was also a stop. Thirdly, they comply with the requirements of this regulation. The vehicle was stopped at the request of a police officer and stood for 20 minutes. To comply with the regulation. Here we are talking about a stop as well. Accordingly, parking is the stopping of the vehicle for more than 5 minutes for reason not related to the necessity of fulfilling the requirements of these rules. Embarkation, disembarkation of passengers, and loading-unloading of cargo. Remember that in places where stopping is prohibited, parking is also prohibited, and in places where parking is prohibited, stopping is allowed. A forced stop is when a vehicle stops moving for one of four reasons. One is a technical malfunction. Second is the danger caused by the transported cargo. Third is the condition of the road user. And fourth is the occurrence of an obstruction traffic. A stop for other reasons is no longer a forced stop. Also, it is not in the terminology of the rules. There is also a deliberate stop and a stop to meet the requirements of the regulations. An intentional stop is a stop for any reason. An example of a stop to comply with the regulation is a stop in front of a locked barrier at a railway crossing, or at the request of a police officer. An obstruction is a stationary object within a vehicle's lane or a moving object in the same direction. Expect a vehicle moving into the general traffic flow. An obstruction forces the driver to maneuver or slow down until the motor vehicle comes to a stop. Braking distance is the distance traveled by the vehicle during emergency braking from the beginning of the impact on the brake system control to the point of its stop. The braking distance depends on the speed of movement, road conditions, the vehicle's technical and the load condition. The driver must therefore consider these factors, particularly for the safe speed, distance and interval correct selection. Actual weight is the weight of the equipped vehicle, determined by its technical characteristics with the driver and cargo. The permitted maximum weight is the weight of the equipped vehicle, together with cargo, driver and passengers, established by the technical characteristics of the motor vehicle at the maximum. It also must be noted that the actual weight of a road train is the sum of the actual weight of each vehicle as a part of the road train. The permitted maximum weight of a road train is the sum of the maximum permissible weight of each motor vehicle included in it. Permissible maximum axle load is the vehicle's maximum axle load indicated in the road traffic rules. Permissible maximum dimensions are the vehicle's overall dimensions specified in the road traffic regulations. An inseparable load is a load that cannot be divided into two or more parts without unnecessary cost or risk of damage. Dimension and weight inspection is the inspection of dimensional and weight parameters of a vehicle, including a motor vehicle, trailer and cargo, for compliance with the established standards regarding dimensions: width, height for the road surface, length of the motor vehicle, and loading, actual weight, axle load. The weight and dimension inspection takes place according to prescribed procedures at stationary or mobile weight and dimension inspection stations. The truck driver must stop for the appropriate inspection if requested to do so by a control officer or a police officer. That is all for now. See you in the